Good morning. It is great to have you with us again. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's been a stressful week here in town. People losing power and dealing with all kinds of problems. And now you may have some anxiety about what comes next. There's a fine line between stress and anxiety, and you treat them a little bit differently. And we're going to talk about how you can use non-prescription, non-drug therapies for treating anxiety with Greg Russell, the Fort Wayne Custom RX founder. Glad to have you back again.
Great to be here. Yes, you're right. What a stressful week for us to live here in Northeast Indiana.
Boy, it has been. And let's talk about the difference between stress and anxiety. They are related, but two different things.
Right. The stress response system is a fairly primitive system that we have to help motivate us when we need to move out of the way of the train, free to say, you know. But the question is, those trains keep coming every day, right? How do we handle that? And so, yeah, stress is different than anxiety. Certainly, chronic stress can lead to anxiety, but it's a totally different diagnostic.
Yeah, I was looking at the American Psychological Association site because I wasn't clear on really what that difference is. Mm-hmm. And they say stress is the constant fear of something going wrong or causing you harm, as opposed to stress. So anxiety is a different sort of condition, and then it can move into really a long-term chronic situation. And there is, of course, general anxiety disorder and lots of other disorders associated with anxiety.
Sure. So, for example, we all have a little anxiety if we have to. I'll use public speaking because that's probably one of the most common ones. And I can tell you personally, 30 years ago, I was the shyest guy in town. I hated to get in front of people. But over time, I learned to deal with that. And of course, now it doesn't bother me at all. So you can move past some anxiety, but other forms of anxiety can be pretty debilitating. And so, we should certainly let people know that what we're talking about is situational or temporary anxiety or occasional anxiety that really doesn't need medical help. However, there are people that certainly need the appropriate medical help, and those patients really should make sure they are seeking that proper help, whether it's psychological or through their medical doctor.
So we're going to talk about some nutritional and herbal supplements today that can step up your ability to cope with anxiety, but without stepping into a prescription drug. So drug-free solutions to anxiety control.
Right, and we'll make some comparisons. I'll explain how some of the drugs work, and I'll explain how some of the herbs and nutritional supplements work too.
Well, let's start there. If I have Well, let's separate nutritional supplements. Let's go there first.
Sure.
So we're talking here about not plants, but other things such as?
Yeah. So probably one of the biggest ones that's used is 5-HTP or tryptophan. That is a supplement that helps work on the braking system, I guess you want to say, of the body. So, we've all talked about serotonin in the past, mm-hmm. right? So serotonin kind of helps us with mood. And so the thought is that some of these pathways are improperly balanced. So if I have a situation, so there's a gland in the body called the amygdala that's underneath the part of the brain, and that's some of the emotional centers. And there's a specific area in that amygdala called the locus coeruleus that makes and stores these brain chemicals. And there is a thought that for people that have anxiety, and especially if it's pathological or, there is alterations in the way that these chemicals are either made, or the patient is more sensitive to the release of those chemicals. And so they're always in this kind of fight or flight type mode, right? So the thought is how basically the two systems that we affect with either nutritional supplements and or drugs is the serotonin symptom and the GABA systems. And those are kind of the braking systems of the body.
As in, put your foot on the brake.
Put your foot on the brake, right. Uh-huh. Now, epinephrine or norepinephrine, which are chemicals that are secreted by the adrenal glands that also are affected by, as we talked earlier, stress, there is some theory that patients they tend to be more sensitive to those chemicals. And, again, a lot of this is theory, but that's kind of how the pharmacological drugs work. They're trying to either block or enhance certain chemicals mm-hmm. in the body.
So GABA is a substance that really has proven to be very effective in treating these areas of the brain and sort of those neurotransmitters.
Right, exactly. So if we look at GABA, 5-HTP, taurine, and L-theanine, these are all products that aren't considered herbs, they're considered amino acids. And which that really means is they are proteins that are available that our body uses as building blocks to make other chemicals or other brain chemicals as well as other things for the body.
So if I'm taking GABA as a supplement, what is that doing for me?
Yeah, so GABA, there are subsets of GABA receptors, but generally these are stimulating the weaker GABA receptors, so you're not going to have this drug hangover effect. Okay, but what GABA is doing, again, by trying to put the brake on the body, we're trying to just manage that anxiety without having a pharmacological drug effect.
Now, one of the products that you have at Fort Wayne Custom RX is something called GABA Calm, and it contains two of the things you just mentioned, GABA and L-theanine. So putting these two together, I'm kind of getting a double hit?
Right, and I actually love this product because it's one of the few ones that I have that has both GABA and theanine in it. So I find that what I initially do, a lot of times is just put people on theanine or GABA by themselves. But then I found when I actually put the GABA and the L-theanine both together, that I was getting more of an additive effect.
So give me an idea of how I would use this and how am I going to notice a difference?
Yeah. So for people that kind of feel like they just need to take the edge off their day to day, I might have patient take one capsule 2 times a day, just every single day. Now, if somebody is more of into a situational thing, hey, I've got a lot of things coming up in the next couple weeks, well, then I might even have them take 2 to 4 a day for a week or two as they're going through this scenario. And because again, it's what I love about theanine and GABA is they don't really cause drowsiness. There's no addiction potential, so if you go off of it, we don't get a rebound of symptoms of that nature. So it's really pretty easy to take in general.
You know, I was surprised as I was doing some research on anxiety that teenagers have a very high percentage of teenagers have anxiety-related conditions and disorders. Are these things safe for young people like that?
They are, and what I love about theanine for sure is we've actually, of course, under a doctor's order, we made nasal sprays and oral drops for infants. I mean, they're so safe. And theanine is a major component, for example, in green tea. So a lot of people, when they drink green tea, it helps with relaxation. Well, theanine is one of those components, and it kind of counters the effects of caffeine.
Mm-hmm. I was looking at some research done that shows that this particular clinical trial showed that GABA was particularly effective for people in overcoming anxiety, and they were very supportive of GABA as an ongoing use product. So interesting. It's out there.
And if you'll take a look at the benzos, which we talked about last week, those work on a different GABA receptor typically, and they're much stronger, and they hook on, and that's why they get that hangover effect.
So if I'm taking another medication, maybe for depression, I'm on one of those serotonin reuptake drugs like Prozac or something similar, are these safe to take as well?
Generally, they are. So what we would do is we would screen. So, for example, if you're on Prozac, I would probably make sure you don't get a medication that has 5-HT in it. That herb or that nutritional product, as we were just talking about, the 5-HT can theoretically increase a serotonin syndrome. And what that means is serotonin syndrome, if that's increases your blood pressure, your heart rate, gives you more anxiety. And so what we don't want to do is do that. And that is more theoretical. It's not really been shown to happen so much, but we'll err on the side of caution. We'll use something else.
Got it. Mm-hmm. So one of the products that we're discussing today is GABA Calm, L-theanine, and GABA, both in a capsule form that you can get at Fort Wayne Custom RX. If you're just looking for something to help take the edge off, there's a whole different line of aids available to you. They are herbal-based plants that have been used forever. I mean, really just for centuries in China and other places. We're going to talk about as we continue our conversation of non-drug therapies for anxiety with Greg Russell from Fort Wayne Custom RX here on the Health Call Live Radio Hour on WOWO. And also back with Greg Russell, the founder of Fort Wayne Custom RX. We are talking today about drug-free alternatives for products to help you deal with anxiety, a huge problem for lots of people. We talked earlier about some nutritional elements. I want to shift into sort of the herbal world. And man, there are just centuries of experience with plants that help with anxiety.
Yeah, plants is Mother's Nature way of dealing with this. And, especially in the Middle East, China, India, they have used these herbs for centuries. Of course, they're not FDA approved for treatment of disease. However, how many people take chamomile tea? Chamomile is probably one of the most recognizable ones. Chamomile, valerian root is another one. We use valerian root also to help us sleep, so it has some sedation to it. Hops. When we think of hops, we think of beer, but the hops, actual organic material, has been very helpful too. So there are some nifty different ones. We talked a little bit about that sympathetic system, the norepinephrine and epinephrine being stimulated. There is a kava, which is a very interesting plant that was basically from the Polynesian people, and they would take the leaf of this plant and smoke it, and they would use that as kind of their way of sedating without drowsiness. Another great product. Of course, the big problem with kava has been it's been well documented of liver toxicity. So it's not the one that I usually recommend we start with, just for that reason. However, most of the people that had liver toxicity were consuming huge amounts of it and were smoking it.
So I think the thing that I like about a product you're going to tell us about, Botanicalm, is that I have all of these components put together in one capsule. So I'm not taking a bunch of different stuff and trying to manage that dose.
Yeah, there's two neat products that I like that are combination. One is the Botanicalm, made by Orthomolecular. It does have kava in it, so I don't always start with this product. Just kind of depends on if somebody's taking a lot of prescription medications that are going through the liver, or we suspect there might be some liver issues going on. But what I like about it has a mixture of all those. It's one a day. It's easy to take. So it's a nice product. The other product I like is called Serenity. Again, it's made by Orthomolecular. It has the GABA in it. It has the 5-HTP. It has the taurine, so it has all those amino acids we talked about earlier. And it doesn't have the herbs in it per se, but it does have a B vitamin, which is really interesting, called inositol. And I'm starting to fall in love with that because inositol seems like, again, it's just a B vitamin, but it really has a lot of neat benefits, including into the nervous system. So
if I'm using these non-drug agents to help manage anxiety, how soon will I feel some effect?
Yeah, so, the cool thing about theanine is I've seen people within a few days feel much better on those products. So relatively speaking, it works fairly quickly.
And can I play with the dose? Am I safe to kind of, 2 didn't help, maybe should I go to 3?
Yeah.
Is there a risk involved here?
So, yeah, I would say it's going to depend on the product, but certainly theanine has a wide range, and I've dosed that every 3 to 4 hours for some people. So, you have to kind of play around with things. It's almost like CBD. There's no magic dose of what it is, but typically I'll start people, I try to schedule it, have them take it 2 times a day. And then if after a few days they're not feeling any better, then we'll slowly start to increase the dose, especially on the theanine.
So CBD, my gosh, how did we not mention that before just now?
Yeah.
That was such a big trend for a while.
Yeah.
I haven't heard much about CBD.
Yeah, I think CBD is kind of plateaued as far as being up in people's minds, but I have used it for patients with heavy anxiety. And again, a lot of these products are kind of neat because you can mix and match them. So, we can try some CBD with somebody. If they get some results with it, then great. If they don't, we can add some theanine and switch them off to CBD. So it really becomes no two people are exactly the same. we just have to customize the situation. We have to try to figure out what works for that patient.
So if I'm feeling anxious and want to do something but don't want to go to prescription drugs yet, you're suggesting this is a great starting point.
It's a great starting point if the anxiety is not so severe that it's really disrupting your life. Again, this is where our common sense has to be. If you're to the point where you can't sleep, you're worrying about everything all the time, you can't function at work, you might cause an accident, harm to yourself. I hate to say the word suicidal thoughts, but those types of things need to be dealt with medically.
Interesting. I hadn't even thought of that. So if I have to undergo drug testing at work, are these things going to cause any kind of a challenge for me at all?
Nope. With maybe the exception of the CBD, but even CBD typically doesn't come up on most drug tests.
Oh, great. So there's an option open to me that is completely natural and proven to be effective, and it's not going to interfere with my employment. That sounds like a win-win-win.
Yeah, it is. And, we love these products because they really do seem to help patients. It makes a positive impact in their life.
Do I need to be concerned since I'm taking an herbal product if I've got allergies, if ragweed, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So chamomile, for example, some people do have an allergy to ragweed, and they will have some cross sensitivity. So we do have to be careful with that.
So what's your advice on how I come and talk to you, and then you kind of identify what my but anxiety level is, and kind of guide me through this process?
Yeah, I think, basically if we can assess and again, the wonderful thing about my pharmacy is we always have pharmacists available. We're here for you when you walk through that front door. And if it needs to be a more formal sit-down talk, we're always available too for consultations. And I do recommend that for patients that are on a large amount of drugs, because I like to screen through them. So if I have that list ahead of me, I can look through them, and we can be more productive with our time. So,
is there any medication I might be on that would keep me from using these products?
I would be very careful with some of the different tranquilizer type medications that we've used that are available. But again, there are select some that work hand in hand very well with them. We just need to be careful as to what we would select.
Gotcha. And how soon am I going to start feeling the impact? If I start with some of these products, is 2 days, 3 days, 5 days? What you said theanine happens pretty quickly.
Yeah, the theanine
these other ones,
and the other ones may take, like the Serenity might take. May not work quite as fast, but I think some of its benefits can be more longer acting. And because you are mixing a different blend of different things together, you're going to be coming at the same problem from different angles. And I think that can be productive too. So if it's, again, mild, maybe, but you feel a little more chronic with it, then you could stay on these things pretty indefinitely.
In the research I did leading up to this, men do not actually seek treatment for anxiety-related disorders very often at all. There's this John Wayne cowboy thing, I'll get through it.
Shows I'm weak if I admit there's an issue. But and that's sad to say. One thing we could say about COVID, it increased awareness of anxiety, and I think 1 in 3 adults suffer from anxiety at some point in their life. So that's huge, and society certainly plays a role in that. But I think COVID increased that by another 25% is what the numbers show, and we certainly have seen that in our pharmacy.
Yeah, good point to start. If you're feeling some anxiety and you just want to try something and see if it's going to make a difference, great non-pharmaceutical way to do that. You can visit with Greg Russell or the other pharmacists at Fort Wayne Custom RX. They're at 425 East DuPont Road. You can order these products online at fwcustomrx.com. Leave us with the last thought on anxiety, Greg.
Well,
it's not to cause you any anxiety at the last minute.
It's a common problem that needs to be dealt with, and this ever-evolving world that we live in seems to be creating more anxiety, and we just want everybody to chill out, do some breathing exercises, relax, enjoy life.
There you go. Thank you very much. That is Greg Russell, the founder of Fort Wayne Custom RX, and a regular guest here on Health Call Live, because he always brings great information. What's going on in the background there? A little calming music. I like that.